I watched the security footage for the third time that morning, my coffee growing cold beside me, and I still could not believe what I was seeing on my doorbell camera. My name is Marcus Jefferson, and I have lived in the Willow Creek Estates subdivision in Plano, Texas, for exactly 2 years. I work from home as a software developer, which means I am around the house more than most of my neighbors. That also means I witness a lot of the absurd drama that goes on in this supposedly peaceful neighborhood. The HOA here has always been strict, sending violation notices for the most trivial things like leaving your garbage cans out 15 minutes too long, or having the wrong shade of beige paint on your shutters. But what I caught on camera yesterday afternoon crossed every line imaginable. The woman on my screen was Patricia Morrison, the HOA president. She was a 52-year-old woman with short blonde hair, always styled in that particular Karen haircut, the one that screams she wants to speak to the manager. She wore her usual outfit of pressed khaki pants and a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on it, like she was some kind of official authority figure. In the video, I watched her approach my front door, look around nervously, then pick up the package that had been delivered just 10 minutes earlier. She tucked it under her arm and walked away like she owned it. The package was not even something expensive. It was a replacement keyboard I had ordered for $79. But that was not the point. The point was that the HOA president, the person supposedly in charge of maintaining order and integrity in our neighborhood, had just committed theft on camera. And she had no idea I had video evidence of the entire thing. I sat back in my office chair and rubbed my eyes. This was going to be a headache. I had dealt with Patricia before, mostly through written violations she loved to send out. Last month, she fined me $50 because my lawn was allegedly half an inch too tall. I had measured it myself, and she was wrong, but fighting it would have cost me more time and energy than just paying the ridiculous fine. The month before that, she cited me for having my car parked on the street overnight when I had a friend visiting. Apparently, overnight street parking was forbidden in our HOA bylaws, buried somewhere in the 70-page document I had foolishly not read thoroughly before buying the house. But this was different. This was not some petty violation notice. This was actual theft, a real crime that I had documented evidence of. I picked up my phone and texted my girlfriend, Tessa Reynolds, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. "You're not going to believe what just happened," I typed. "The HOA president stole my package. I have it on video." Her response came within seconds. "What? Send me the video right now." I downloaded the footage from my Doorbell Cameras app and sent it to her. The camera was one of those smart doorbells I had installed when I first moved in, mostly for convenience and security. I never imagined I would actually need it to catch someone stealing from me, especially not the person who was supposed to be protecting property values and enforcing community standards. My phone rang immediately. Tessa did not even wait for me to say hello before launching in. "Marcus, this is insane. She just walked up and took it. Did she think you wouldn't notice?" "I guess so," I said, watching the video play for the 4th time. "Maybe she thought I was not home, or maybe she assumed I did not have a camera. I do not know what she was thinking." "What are you going to do?" Tessa asked. "I am not sure yet. Part of me wants to just walk over there and confront her directly, but I know that will probably just turn into a shouting match and she will deny everything." "Do not confront her alone," Tessa warned. "People like that are unpredictable. You have evidence, so you need to be smart about this. You should file a police report." I had not considered going to the police yet. It seemed extreme, but then again, theft was theft. "You really think I should involve the cops?" "Absolutely. This is not a civil HOA dispute. This is a crime. She stole your property. The fact that she is the HOA president makes it worse, not better. She is abusing her position." Tessa had a point. I thanked her and told her I would think about my next move. After we hung up, I spent the next hour researching what to do. Texas law was clear about package theft. It was considered mail theft if it went through USPS, which was a federal crime. Even if it was delivered by Amazon or another private carrier, it was still theft under state law, classified as a Class C misdemeanor for items under $100, but it could be elevated depending on circumstances. I decided to make copies of the video and save them in multiple places. I uploaded it to cloud storage, emailed it to myself, and saved it on a USB drive. Then I called the Plano Police Department non-emergency line. The dispatcher was polite and took down my information. She said an officer would come by sometime that afternoon to take my statement. While I waited, I decided to do some research on Patricia Morrison and the HOA board. I pulled up our neighborhood's website and looked through the board member profiles. Patricia had been president for 4 years, running unopposed each election. Her profile described her as a dedicated community advocate who cared deeply about property values and neighborhood standards. There were photos of her at various HOA events, always with that tight smile that did not reach her eyes. The more I dug, the more interesting things became. I found old meeting minutes posted on the website and started reading through them. There were complaints from other homeowners about missing packages over the past year. At least 6 different residents had brought up package theft at HOA meetings, asking if the board could do something about it. Maybe install neighborhood security cameras or increase patrols. Each time, Patricia had dismissed the concerns, saying package theft was not the HOA's responsibility and that homeowners should take their own precautions. Now I wondered if those packages had actually been stolen by random thieves, or if Patricia had been behind some of those thefts too. The thought made my blood boil. Around 2 in the afternoon, a Plano police officer knocked on my door. He was a younger guy, maybe in his late 20s, with a crew cut and a professional demeanor. His name tag read Officer Davis. "Mr. Jefferson, I am here about the package theft report." I invited him in and showed him to my home office where I had the video ready to play. I explained what happened, showing him the timestamp and pointing out Patricia clearly on camera. Officer Davis watched the video twice, taking notes. "And you are certain this is Patricia Morrison, the HOA president?" "Absolutely certain. I have met with her several times. That is definitely her." "You still have the tracking information for the package?" I pulled up my Amazon account and showed him the delivery confirmation, which matched the timestamp on my doorbell camera exactly. The package had been marked as delivered at 2:14 p.m., and the video showed Patricia taking it at 2:24 p.m. "This is pretty clear-cut," Officer Davis said. "I will need a copy of this video for the report. We will contact Miss Morrison and investigate." Since the value is under $100, this would typically be a Class C misdemeanor, but given her position and the deliberate nature of the act, the district attorney might pursue enhanced charges. "What happens next?" I asked. "I will file the report today. A detective will likely follow up within a few days. They may want to interview you again and potentially interview Miss Morrison. If there is enough evidence, which there clearly is, they will forward it to the DA's office for potential charges." After Officer Davis left, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. I had done the right thing by reporting it, but I also knew this was going to make my life in this neighborhood extremely complicated. Patricia Morrison was not the type to take this lying down, and she had the entire HOA board behind her. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to work, but I could not focus. Every few minutes, I would glance at my doorbell camera app, half expecting Patricia to show up again. Around 5 p.m. my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. "Hello, is this Marcus Jefferson?" A woman's voice, sharp and angry. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Patricia Morrison. I just had the police at my door accusing me of stealing your package." "I do not know what kind of game you are playing, but you need to drop this right now." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. "Patricia, I have video of you taking my package from my doorstep yesterday. This is not a game. You stole my property." "I did no such thing. That package was delivered to the wrong address. I was bringing it to you." "Really?" "Because the tracking information shows it was delivered to the correct address, my address. And if you were bringing it to me, why didn't you knock on my door? Why did you take it and leave?" There was a pause. "I was going to bring it back later. I had other HOA business to attend to." "That does not make any sense, Patricia. If the package was already at my house at the correct address, why would you take it at all?" "Listen here, Mr. Jefferson. I have been president of this HOA for 4 years. I have dedicated countless volunteer hours to this community. I do not appreciate being accused of theft by some newcomer who cannot even keep his lawn properly maintained. This has nothing to do with lawn violations or HOA politics. You took something that did not belong to you. I have it on video. The police have the evidence. You can try to spin this however you want, but the facts are clear." Patricia's voice became even more hostile. "You just made a very big mistake. You have no idea who you are dealing with. I will make your life in this neighborhood a living hell." "Is that a threat?" I asked, feeling my own anger rising. "It is a promise. You will regret this." She hung up. I immediately saved a recording of the call. My phone had an automatic call recording feature that I had enabled months ago for work purposes. This threat would be useful if things escalated further. Tessa came over that evening with takeout from our favorite Thai place. I filled her in on everything that had happened since we last spoke. "She threatened you." Tessa looked furious. "Marcus, you need to document everything. Every interaction, every email, every violation notice. People like her don't stop. She's going to retaliate." "I know. I am ready for it. I have been dealing with her petty violations for 2 years. If she wants to escalate, I have evidence of an actual crime now. She is the one who should be worried. You should also reach out to those other homeowners who reported package thefts," Tessa suggested, pointing her fork at me for emphasis. "If there is a pattern here, it strengthens your case and helps anyone else she might have stolen from." That was a good idea. After dinner, I drafted a post for our neighborhood's Facebook group. It was a private group with about 200 members, mostly residents sharing information about local events, lost pets, and occasionally complaining about HOA policies. I kept my post factual and straightforward. "Hi, neighbors. I recently had a package stolen from my porch. I was able to capture the theft on my doorbell camera and have filed a police report. If anyone else has had packages go missing in the past year, please DM me. There may be a pattern we should be aware of. Thanks." I posted it and waited. Within 5 minutes, I had 3 direct messages. Within an hour, I had 12. The stories were remarkably similar. Packages marked as delivered but never received. Some homeowners had assumed the delivery drivers made mistakes or that random thieves had taken them. A few people mentioned they had brought up their concerns at HOA meetings, only to have Patricia dismiss them. One message stood out from a homeowner named Robert Chen. "Marcus, I have been suspicious about Patricia for months. Last October, I had a package stolen that contained my wife's prescription medication. When I asked Patricia if the HOA could review any security footage from the neighborhood entrance, She refused and said it was a waste of resources. She seemed really defensive about it. I ended up having to file an insurance claim. If you are building a case against her, I want to help. I responded to each message, asking if anyone had filed police reports or had any video evidence. Most had not, either because they assumed it was a random theft or because they did not think the police would do anything about it. But now, with my video evidence and the pattern of thefts, we potentially had a much bigger case. I forwarded all the messages to Officer Davis's email, which he had provided on his business card. I included a summary explaining that at least 12 households had reported similar package thefts over the past year, all during times when Patricia would have had access, as she made her rounds through the neighborhood. That night, I barely slept. I kept my phone on the nightstand, volume up, in case anything happened. Tessa stayed over, which I appreciated. Around 3 in the morning, my doorbell camera sent me a motion alert. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the live feed. Patricia Morrison was standing on my front porch, staring directly at the camera. She was not attempting to hide her face. She stood there for almost 30 seconds, just looking into the lens, her expression cold and angry. Then she turned and walked away. What is she doing? Tessa mumbled, half asleep beside me. Intimidation, I said, saving the video clip. She wants me to know she can show up whenever she wants. That's harassment. Send that to the police too. In the morning, I filed an additional report about Patricia's late-night visit. Officer Davis called me around 10 a.m. to let me know that a detective had been assigned to the case. Detective Laura Chen will be reaching out to you today, he said. She is with our Property Crimes Division. Given the number of reports you forwarded and the video evidence, they are taking this seriously. Detective Chen called me an hour later. She had a no-nonsense voice and got straight to business. Mr. Jefferson, I have reviewed your video evidence and the additional reports you sent. This appears to be more than an isolated incident. I would like to meet with you this afternoon to go over everything in detail. Would 2 p.m. work? Absolutely. Should I come to the station? That would be best. Bring any additional evidence you have and we will go from there. I spent the next few hours organizing everything. I printed out all the Facebook messages, compiled a list of affected homeowners with their contact information, and created a timeline of events. I also printed out several HOA meeting minutes where package thefts had been reported, and Patricia had dismissed them. Tessa took a late lunch break to come with me to the police station. Detective Chen met us in a small conference room. She was in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. She reviewed all my documentation carefully, asking detailed questions about dates, times, and my interactions with Patricia. This is thorough work, she said, impressed. You have essentially done half of my investigation for me. Based on what I am seeing here, we have enough to get a warrant for Miss Morrison's home and vehicle. If she has been stealing packages regularly, there may be additional stolen property or evidence. What about the threats? Tessa asked. Marcus has recordings of her threatening him, and she showed up at his house at 3 in the morning to intimidate him. Detective Chen made notes. That supports a harassment charge. Combined with the theft charges, this is building into a significant case. Mr. Jefferson, I need to be honest with you. This is going to get messy. Miss Morrison has some influence in the community and she is not going to go quietly. You need to be prepared for that. I understand, I said, but she broke the law multiple times. She needs to be held accountable. I agree. We will move forward with the investigation. I will be in touch. Over the next week, things moved faster than I expected. Detective Chen obtained a warrant and searched Patricia's home. They found dozens of undelivered packages in her garage, some dating back over a year. Some had been opened, their contents scattered on shelves. Others were still sealed. It was a hoarder's collection of stolen mail and packages. The discovery made local news. HOA president arrested for package theft ring, the headline read. The story detailed how Patricia Morrison had been systematically stealing packages from residents in Willow Creek Estates for at least 18 months. The estimated value of stolen property exceeded $10,000, which elevated the charges to felony theft. The news coverage was intense. Local TV stations interviewed homeowners who had been victims. Robert Chen spoke on camera about his wife's stolen medication. Another neighbor, an elderly woman named Dorothy Sanders, talked about how she thought she was losing her mind when birthday gifts she ordered for her grandchildren never arrived. Through all of this, I kept a low profile. I did not give any interviews or make any public statements. I just wanted the justice system to do its job. But staying quiet did not protect me from the fallout within the neighborhood. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. I attended, along with about 100 other residents. The meeting was held at the community clubhouse, and the tension in the room was palpable. The remaining board members, 3 middle-aged men who had mostly been rubber stamps for Patricia's decisions, sat at a table in the front looking uncomfortable. The vice president, a balding man named Gerald Hughes, called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As you are all aware, Patricia Morrison has been arrested and charged with multiple counts of theft. She has resigned from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. There were murmurs throughout the room. Gerald continued, "We want to assure everyone that the board was not aware of any criminal activity. We are cooperating fully with the police investigation. We are also conducting an internal audit of HOA finances to ensure there are no other irregularities." A woman in the back stood up. "How did this go on for so long? People complained about package thefts for over a year. Why did nobody investigate?" Gerald shifted uncomfortably. "In hindsight, we should have taken those complaints more seriously. We trusted Patricia's judgment when she said it was not an HOA matter. We were wrong. We are implementing new oversight procedures to ensure nothing like this happens again." Another resident, a younger guy in a suit, spoke up. "What about all the unfair fines and violations Patricia handed out? Are those being reviewed? Because I know several people who were targeted for petty nonsense while she was literally committing crimes. We are reviewing all violation notices issued over the past 2 years, Gerald assured. If any fines were improperly assessed, we will issue refunds. I raised my hand. Gerald's eyes found mine and I saw him swallow nervously. He knew who I was. Everyone in the room probably knew who I was by now. Yes, Mr. Jefferson. I want to know what the board is doing to address the culture that allowed this to happen. Patricia did not just wake up one day and decide to start stealing. She had unchecked power, no accountability, and a board that went along with everything she said. What structural changes are being made to prevent another abuse of power? The room erupted in applause and agreement. Gerald looked flustered. We are open to suggestions. That is part of why we called this meeting. We need community input on how to move forward. The meeting went on for 2 more hours. Residents voiced their frustrations, shared their stories of dealing with Patricia's tyranny, and proposed changes to HOA governance. By the end, the board agreed to implement term limits for officers, require board votes for any fines over $25, and establish a community oversight committee that could review and challenge board decisions. It was progress, but it would take time to rebuild trust. As I left the meeting, several neighbors approached me to thank me for standing up to Patricia and pursuing the case. Robert Chen shook my hand firmly. "You did what a lot of us were too afraid to do. Thank you." Dorothy Sanders, the elderly woman who had spoken to the news, gave me a hug. "My grandchildren finally got their birthday presents after the police returned them. You gave us justice, young man." Their gratitude meant more to me than I expected. I had not set out to be a neighborhood hero. I just wanted my keyboard and for someone to be held accountable for breaking the law. But I was glad the situation had led to positive changes. The legal process moved forward through the spring and into summer. Patricia Morrison was charged with 18 counts of felony theft, multiple counts of misdemeanor theft, and additional charges related to mail tampering and harassment. Her attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the district attorney's office was not inclined to be lenient given the scale of her crimes and her abuse of her position. The case went to trial in August. I was called as a witness, along with a dozen other residents. The prosecution presented the doorbell camera footage, which was damning. There was no way to explain away video evidence of Patricia taking my package and all the stolen items found in her garage. Patricia's defense was weak. Her attorney argued that she had been under stress, that her actions were a result of mental health issues, and that she had intended to return the packages eventually. The jury was not buying it. After 3 days of testimony, they deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The sentencing hearing was held 2 weeks later. I attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Patricia looked smaller somehow, diminished in her orange jumpsuit. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s who did not mince words. "Miss Morrison, you held a position of trust in your community. Residents relied on you to protect their interests and maintain standards. Instead, you betrayed that trust by systematically stealing from your neighbors over an extended period. You showed no remorse until you were caught, and even then, you attempted to intimidate witnesses and obstruct the investigation. This court finds your conduct reprehensible." The judge sentenced Patricia to 4 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 years. She was also ordered to pay restitution to all victims, totaling over $15,000 once lawyer fees and other costs were included. Additionally, she received 5 years of probation following her release and was permanently banned from serving on any homeowner association board in Texas. As the bailiff led Patricia away, I felt a complex mix of emotions. I was not happy to see someone go to prison, but I was satisfied that justice had been served. She had hurt a lot of people, and there needed to be consequences. Outside the courthouse, Detective Chen found me. "Mr. Jefferson, I wanted to thank you personally. Without your evidence and your willingness to pursue this, Morrison would have kept stealing and abusing her power. You did a good thing." "I just did what anyone should do when they witness a crime," I said. "You would be surprised how many people do not. They look the other way, or they decide it is not worth the hassle. You chose to act, and that made all the difference." Life in Willow Creek Estates slowly returned to normal over the following months. The HOA elected a new president, a reasonable woman named Jennifer Martinez, who actually listened to residents and focused on legitimate community issues rather than petty enforcement. The oversight committee I had pushed for was established, and I was asked to serve on it. I agreed, figuring I might as well help ensure the changes we fought for actually stuck. My package theft had started a chain reaction that exposed corruption, brought a criminal to justice, and reformed a broken system. The whole experience taught me that sometimes standing up for what is right, even when it is inconvenient or uncomfortable, is necessary. It also taught me that communities are only as strong as the people willing to hold their leaders accountable. Tessa and I got engaged that fall. I proposed at a park in downtown Plano, far away from any HOA jurisdiction. She said yes immediately, and we laughed about how our relationship had been tested by the drama of the HOA saga. If we could get through that together, we could handle anything. The doorbell camera that had captured Patricia's theft remained on my front door, still recording. But now, instead of catching criminals, it mostly just recorded delivery drivers, the occasional neighborhood cat, and Tessa coming and going. Boring, normal, peaceful footage. Exactly what I wanted. I did upgrade my security system, though, adding cameras around the perimeter of my property. Not because I was paranoid, but because the experience had shown me the value of documentation. If something ever happened again, I would be ready. But more than that, the visible cameras served as a deterrent. Anyone thinking about messing with my property now knew they were being watched. Word of what happened in our neighborhood spread to other HOAs in the area. I received emails and calls from residents in other subdivisions dealing with their own power-hungry board members. I shared my experience and advice, emphasizing the importance of evidence, following proper legal channels, and community organizing. A few of those conversations led to investigations in other neighborhoods, uncovering various forms of HOA corruption and abuse. It turned out Patricia Morrison was not unique. There were plenty of people who saw HOA board positions as opportunities for petty tyranny rather than community service. But there were also plenty of homeowners fed up with that behavior and willing to fight back when they saw how successful our case had been. A local news station did a follow-up piece 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, examining how our neighborhood had changed. They interviewed several residents, including me. I kept my comments brief and focused on the positive reforms that had been implemented. The HOA now actually serves the community instead of controlling it, I said on camera. We have reasonable rules enforced fairly, transparent finances, and board members who are accountable to residents. That is how it should have been from the start. The reporter asked if I had any regrets about pursuing the case against Patricia, given how much time and energy it took. No regrets at all, I answered. Sometimes doing the right thing is difficult, but that does not mean you should not do it. If I had just let her steal my package without consequences, she would have kept victimizing other people. I am glad I had the evidence and the opportunity to stop that. As winter approached and the holidays neared, the neighborhood looked different. There was a genuine sense of community now, with neighbors actually talking to each other, instead of avoiding eye contact out of fear of HOA violations. The Christmas decorating rules were relaxed to allow more creativity and personal expression. Kids played in yards without parents worrying about grass height violations. It felt like a real neighborhood instead of an authoritarian suburb. I thought about the $79 keyboard that had started this entire journey. It had eventually been returned to me by the police after serving as evidence, though I had already ordered a replacement by then. I kept the original box on a shelf in my office as a reminder. A reminder that small acts of injustice, left unchecked, can be symptoms of larger problems. A reminder that accountability matters, regardless of someone's position or authority. And a reminder that sometimes one person speaking up can create change that benefits an entire community. The case against Patricia Morrison became something of a landmark in Texas HOA law. Her conviction and the reforms implemented in our neighborhood were cited in several legislative discussions about HOA regulations and oversight. There was even talk of new state laws requiring more transparency and accountability for HOA boards, though that process was slow and political. But in Willow Creek Estates, the changes were immediate and real. The monthly HOA meetings that had once been sparsely attended rubber stamp sessions now drew large crowds of engaged residents. The board actually debated decisions instead of just approving them. Violation notices decreased by over 70%, and those that were issued focused on legitimate concerns like safety hazards rather than petty aesthetic complaints. My own property, which had been under constant scrutiny during Patricia's reign, was finally left alone. My lawn grew to whatever height I felt was appropriate. I parked on the street when I had guests without fear of fines. I even painted my shutters a slightly different shade of beige without asking permission first, and nobody said a word because they had better things to worry about. Tessa and I started planning our wedding for the following spring. We joked about having it in the neighborhood clubhouse, just to complete the circle, but ultimately decided on a venue in downtown Dallas. Still, we invited several of our neighbors who had become genuine friends through the whole ordeal. Robert Chen and his wife, Dorothy Sanders, the new HOA president Jennifer Martinez. They had all been part of the journey in different ways. On a quiet Sunday morning in December, almost a year after I first watched that doorbell camera footage of Patricia stealing my package, I sat on my front porch with coffee and watched the neighborhood wake up. Families were out walking dogs, kids rode bikes, someone a few houses down was washing their car. Normal, peaceful suburban life. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Chen. Wanted to let you know Morrison was denied early parole. Board cited lack of genuine remorse. She will serve at least 2 years. Thought you would want to know. I texted back a simple thanks for the update. I did not feel joy at the news, but I felt satisfied. The system had worked, slowly and imperfectly, but it had worked. A criminal had been caught, prosecuted, convicted, and was serving appropriate time for her crimes. Tessa came out and sat beside me, handing me a fresh cup of coffee. What are you thinking about? Just reflecting on how different things are now compared to a year ago. This whole situation was insane, but I am glad it happened. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, she said, leaning against my shoulder. You turned something bad into something good. You stood up to a bully who thought she was untouchable, and you protected a lot of people in the process. You should be proud. I am. But I am also ready to just live a normal, boring life now. No more HOA drama, she laughed. I will drink to that. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood go about its day. My doorbell camera kept its silent watch, recording nothing more interesting than a squirrel running across the yard. The packages that arrived were delivered safely and remained on my porch until I brought them inside. The HOA sent out its monthly newsletter with actual helpful information instead of threatening violation notices. Everything was as it should be. A community functioning properly, with rules that made sense and leaders who actually served rather than ruled. It had taken a theft, an investigation, a trial, and massive reforms to get here, but it was worth it. As I finished my coffee and stood to go back inside, I took one last look at my doorbell camera. That little device had changed everything, capturing evidence that brought down a corrupt HOA president and sparked neighborhood-wide reforms. It was a reminder that in the modern age, accountability is increasingly unavoidable. People who abuse power are more likely than ever to be caught, documented, and exposed. Patricia Morrison learned that lesson the hard way. She thought she could steal with impunity because of her position, because she had always gotten away with smaller abuses of power. She was wrong. and her downfall had made my neighborhood and hopefully others better places to live. I walked inside with Tessa, closing the door behind me. Through the window, I could see my porch, the spot where this all began with a stolen package. It looked peaceful now, just another front porch in suburban Texas. But it represented something more. It represented the idea that justice is possible when people are willing to stand up for it, that communities can reform when residents demand better, and that even the smallest act of theft can lead to the biggest changes. The doorbell camera continued recording, silently documenting the mundane comings and goings of daily life. And that was exactly how I wanted it to stay. No more drama, no more crime, no more corrupt HOA presidents. Just a normal neighborhood where people could live their lives without fear of arbitrary rules or theft from those in power. It had been a long, exhausting journey from that first moment of watching Patricia Morrison steal my package to sitting here now, a year later, in a reformed and improved community. But every difficult conversation, every police report, every court appearance had been worth it. Justice had been served, changes had been made, and life was better for everyone in Willow Creek Estates. As I settled back into my home office to do some work, I glanced at that original keyboard box on my shelf one more time. $79 that led to justice for dozens of victims, prison time for a criminal, and comprehensive reforms that protected an entire community. Best $79 I never actually lost. The story would have been over there, a neat conclusion to a chaotic year. But life rarely wraps up quite that cleanly, and in March, just as Tessa and I were finalizing wedding plans, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Patricia Morrison's attorney, informing me that Patricia was suing me for defamation and emotional distress, claiming that my actions had destroyed her reputation and caused her unjust imprisonment. I stared at the letter in disbelief. Even from prison, she was trying to retaliate. I immediately forwarded it to Tessa, who was furious. "This is completely frivolous," she said when she called me. "She was convicted of multiple felonies. You cannot defame someone by reporting their crimes to police and testifying truthfully in court. This is just harassment." Should I be worried? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Not even a little bit. Her attorney is probably just filing this to appease her or to squeeze some kind of settlement. Do not respond directly. I will have someone from my firm handle it. This will get dismissed so fast her head will spin. She was right. Within 6 weeks, a judge threw out the lawsuit, calling it a frivolous attempt to harass a crime victim. Patricia was ordered to pay my legal fees, which I donated to a nonprofit that helped communities reform abusive HOAs. That was truly the end of Patricia Morrison's involvement in my life and my neighborhood. Her final attempt at revenge had failed as spectacularly as her attempts to avoid justice. And with the lawsuit dismissed, there were no more loose ends, no more threats, no more drama. Tessa and I got married in April at a beautiful venue overlooking downtown Dallas. The ceremony was perfect, surrounded by family and friends, including several neighbors who had become close friends through everything we had been through together. During the reception, Robert Chen gave a toast that brought the house down. "To Marcus and Tessa," he said, raising his glass. "May your marriage be as strong as Marcus's doorbell camera footage, as clear as his pursuit of justice, and as rewarding as the reforms he brought to our neighborhood. And may you never have to deal with another crazy HOA president." Everyone laughed and cheered. It was a perfect moment, celebrating love and friendship and the weird, unexpected journey that had brought us all together. As Tessa and I danced our first dance as a married couple, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. A stolen package, a doorbell camera, an investigation, a trial, and massive community reform. It was not the story I expected to tell when I first moved to Willow Creek Estates, but it was one I was proud of. The neighborhood continued to thrive under Jennifer Martinez's leadership. She served a 2-year term as president and then stepped down, having established systems and procedures that would outlast any individual board member. Her successor was equally committed to fair, transparent governance. The reforms we fought for became part of the neighborhood's culture, not just rules on paper. Package thefts in Willow Creek Estates dropped to nearly zero after Patricia's arrest. Whether that was because she had been the primary thief or because her conviction scared off any other would-be thieves, the result was the same. People could order online without fear, which was especially appreciated during continued waves of online shopping. I eventually removed some of the extra security cameras I had installed during the height of the drama. The doorbell camera stayed, of course, but the perimeter cameras felt like overkill once life returned to normal. I kept the footage archived, though. Years of recordings saved on hard drives in my office. Documentation of ordinary life, punctuated by that one extraordinary moment that changed everything. As years passed, and Tessa and I built our life together in that house, in that neighborhood, the story of Patricia Morrison and the stolen package became part of local legend. New residents moving in would eventually hear about it, usually with details that got increasingly exaggerated with each retelling. In some versions, Patricia had stolen hundreds of packages worth tens of thousands of dollars. In others, I had single-handedly taken down an entire criminal organization. The truth was dramatic enough without embellishment, but I let people tell their stories. What mattered was that it actually happened, that justice was actually served, and that a community actually reformed itself when residents demanded better. Those facts stood regardless of how the story was told around neighborhood barbecues and block parties. Looking back from the comfort and security of my home, years after that March afternoon when I first watched Patricia Morrison steal my package, I remained grateful for that doorbell camera and for my decision to pursue justice instead of letting it go. Small acts of courage can lead to significant changes, and standing up to corruption, no matter how petty it might seem, protects everyone. My story was not unique, though the details were my own. Across America, countless people deal with petty tyrants in HOAs, workplace bullies, corrupt officials, and various other abuses of power. Most of the time, those abuses go unchallenged because fighting back seems too difficult, too risky, or too time-consuming. But when people do stand up, when they document the truth and pursue accountability, things can change, communities can improve, justice can prevail. That was the legacy of my stolen package and everything that followed. Not just one criminal caught and one neighborhood reformed, but a reminder that accountability is possible, that ordinary people can challenge corrupt authority, and that doing the right thing, while often difficult, is always worth it. And so life continued in Willow Creek Estates, Plano, Texas. Kids grew up, families moved in and out, seasons changed, and years passed. The HOA managed the community fairly and transparently, exactly as it should. Package deliveries arrived safely. Neighbors looked out for each other. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind was the story of what happened when one resident refused to let a theft go unanswered. It was a good neighborhood to call home, made better by the lessons learned and the changes implemented. And every time I saw a package delivered to my door on my doorbell camera's app, I smiled, knowing that this time, like every time since, it would still be there when I went to retrieve it. That simple security, that basic trust that your property would not be stolen by the very person supposed to be protecting the community, was something worth fighting for, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat.